So the neurological effects now are being recognized for the first time, unfortunately. There was a court ruling in 2007. It's the first one in the world that has now recognized depleted uranium damage to one of the veterans from the Gulf War. This uranium bullet problem is now in just about every form of armament. It's outrageous. It's a diabolical thing because it is so small that it can act like a micronutrient. It can go into the cells, whereas in the past, when you took radioactive material into the body, it was in a micro size, and micros are millions of a meter. These are nanometer size. It's a billion of a meter. So it's 1,000 times smaller. It's the size of a nutrient, and it's not going to stay in the blood vessels. It's going to move right into the cell as if it were food. And it could do a tremendous amount of damage. I think its major target is the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. Now, I would like to tell you what's happening now and what advances have occurred in quantum physics, which is beginning to help us to understand what radiation is really doing inside of living beings. So you have to know something about the atoms, and you have to know that our precious world is made of atoms. So everything, whether it's living or non-living, and all living creatures, including things like bacteria and viruses, are made of the cell. And the cell, we used to think the fundamental particle in the cell were the atoms, protons, electrons, and neutrons. We called those fundamental particles. But when we split the atom, we found that the neutrons were not really fundamental. And then discovered radioactivity was ejecting particles from the nucleus. So what has been learned, you maybe know quarks now, that was the next level. The quarks make up the protons and the neutrons. But what is really new is that the quarks and the electrons are made up of what's being called photons, gravity photons. Photon is like the unit that makes up light, extremely small. But there are gravity photons that make up the quarks, which make up the protons and the neutrons, and also they're in the electrons. Now, these are particles and they're waves. I'm sure you've heard that before, that there are waves, that there are little particles that move so fast, they appear to us to be waves. They're vibrating inside of the atom. This is very important for understanding what radiation does, because the particles that come off of an atom, which we call alpha, beta, gamma, X-ray, these are particles that come from the nucleus of the atom. They operate with these little gravity photons moving at slower than the speed of light. Now, our natural environment, all of these little photons move at the speed of light. So these are unnatural particles. We always knew radiation was different and bad, but we didn't understand why. Now, when these very These are slower moving. They can even be measured now. But it's in the field of quantum physics. These little particles are moving too slow, and they're carrying information. And everybody knows what happens when you have a photograph record and you play the record slowly. It's muddled. You can't understand what's being said. Well, it's like that. When they operate slowly, they don't communicate well with the normal atoms. Now, start to think about what this means. If you have a slow-moving particle inside the body, it's not going to communicate with the body's immune system, which is at normal speed. So it's not going to recognize it as a foreign body. Think about little viruses that have been exposed to radiation, and they start the atoms in that virus, tiny virus, not moving at the speed of light. They're not going to communicate with our antibiotics or our antiviral medicine, which is normal. Okay, these are the diseases that are hard to treat. It includes so many things. It includes cancers. Cancers involve tissue where there's something abnormal about the speed of these gravity photons. It's something that can happen over time. Cancer is an old age disease, now occurring in younger ages, but it's also occurring from radiation exposure. So is AIDS. So is MRSA, hospital infection. So is this H1N1. So is H5N1, which is the bird flu. So there are neurological diseases, which like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's,